into this project, you'll see some more of this coming next year. This is a project we've done. People at Samaya and Paul were part of this, and many others for the project at Canadian Laboratories. And it actually has a good amount of this stuff mass timber. A little bit more about that next year. So, but the inspiration maybe could be things like this. We got some Koreans here in the audience. The Korean Hanok, it's called. An amazing kind of typology of urban buildings that I got a chance late in life. I finally went to Korea when I was 39 and actually stayed in one of these things. It was amazing to see. And at the same time, at a different trip, that's my son Foster. You probably all know this, the Ryuanji Temple in Kyoto. Of course, it creates for contemplation and wood structures. So one might think, these are it. These are the inspirational, images. But in those two places, Korea or Japan, I found actually this toilet to be so inspirational. This is us. I just put this narrow building. I've actually done narrow buildings, but that was even more narrow. We had the best ramen in there on the 3rd floor. This is a family. But this thing just struck me. It was water that you wash your hands in, an upper tank, or somewhere here. And then I was rainwater, which then is the medium to which we would then flush to the next flush. And I just thought, I think I'm here to think of Ryuanji, but I'm thinking this is it. This is the moment. I didn't even filter it. I just shot it. And so I thought, wow, there are systems at play that I don't know what it is, but it excites me. And then back to the other fellow Koreans in the room. This is I don't even know what it's called in Korean, but it's a pot. It's like a cauldron. It's part of, it's an important piece of the sort of courtyard buildings that are in Korea. This is literally these places that were then adapted for urban conditions. But importantly, it was raised up high enough that at grade level, you would have a place to be cooking a soup or whatever you're doing for the heartburn fire that you're making. The same heat that, of course, will go under the floors to heat all around. Why wouldn't you? Like the water in the toilet, why wouldn't we? And I think these are the systems that are at play. And when you start to see these overhangs of the building, it started to really come into this Bukchan, if you're in Seoul, you've got to check it out. It is an amazing idea of these urban typologies that really fundamentally operate off of these amazing details. Something so simple as a pot with soup that's going for probably a week or two, because it's keep it going in the winter. And I remember meeting someone in one of these places, and then they would collect the water. They would actually come into a wooden sort of trough. And it was a hot summer day in July, and the granite stone in here, they have ceramic rooms up a little higher. It's also being heated by the same cooking sort of kitchen side. But also, the water that was collected would then be just, his ritual would be just kind of splashed all out. Some kind of bamboo cup stick thing. It's a Korean word for it, I'm sure. And so the idea was that at that point, they would also open up the upper level surrounding perimeter screens so that the evaporative process, a hot sun, because they would get really hot, would kickstart the wet, thin layer of water, like sweat on our skin, because of the heat energy and what it would, as a flywheel, suck energy from the surrounding rooms, start to get passive cooling. So that sun, that granite, this water, that was collected. It would start to get this system to just go. And it was just a fabulous moment where I realized, wow, we can actually enter into that system if we chose to look at it. A little bit like what we were talking about systems even in main streets. Like, what are we doing to get inspired by that and to try to look for those things? And then suddenly they make a difference in the city. Suddenly there's an idea towards density or shared spaces. And I get excited by this kind of thing, whether it's a small detail or a bigger system or opportunities. I did this kind of thing here for laneway architecture studies. If you don't know George Baird, he had recently passed away. He was inspired by Walker Art Center, Big Laundry, Design Quarterlies, amazing level of understanding typologies and choices and densities. And at the same time, I was doing the first project in my own studio for a very narrow house. these things all needed to get the right kind of space, right down to inches that I was saving. And those inches I was saving would be me trying to understand with 8-inch steel cut plates that were great formed, installed to me. I draw it out. Paul and I had a good time working with steel details for other projects. How do we start to find those details that might just make a difference at the larger level? So it's not just a detail by itself. And I think these bigger pictures, these bigger things at play, I try to get the Powers of 10 team story here, very influenced now in Toronto. We worked with his guy on the University of New York, that's work on it. And people don't already know Vacant Lot Theory by Barton Myers, dedicated to James Jacobs, also done through the Walker Art Center. It's amazing. And we did these books and studies. And this idea of doing studies through academia. Pardon? Dallas Merton's good call. 20 points for them. Yeah. Dallas Merton's East Vandro. I got a chance to work on all these things. And even Stephen Hall looking at the Pamphlet architecture. We talked about Pamphlet architecture yesterday. And what did it segue? Because this slide, Tom, didn't happen after our conversation yesterday because it made me think again back to this. I always tell people when they ask me about 20 HDR, I'll say many things, but I'll say, we do this just because we need to or want to or can. I don't know what it is, but thank you for people that drive it but allow this to happen and then give the content for it. And it is so well done. It actually is part of this larger story that we've all been part of. And I can't think of another time where this level, it's stewardship again, right? And I wonder if this is not the big Tom sort of loving, but I will say when you start to see these things that are happening, I wonder if this is what inspires me too. This notion that there are systems at play that we try to craft. And I think in that sense, this level of guidance that we're trying to make better things, leading by example, is it really actually advocacy that gets into the exemplary. And I wonder if this is us being bold, this is us trying to be expressive, us trying to do something that's lasting, and with stewardship. So, yeah, that's kind of what gets me going.
Any questions? No, any questions? Come on, no questions. Everything's perfect, so you agree with the new 5 design philosophy here? So, no,
I have a comment. And I would say thank you, number one. Okay, because I think what is missing in the design philosophy, to me, is obvious, but it's about the personality that a person, not a company, that a person has to apply their own thinking about things to a client, right? So when I first started talking, I talked about growth and getting people ramped to do different things. You know, I think that it's how you present. I mean, Diego crossed 2 out. It doesn't mean he doesn't care about those 2 things. It means that he cares more about certain things with that client for that project. He's not telling Tom that he doesn't care about a sustainable approach. He's saying to
yes, he did.
So this is kind of a framework that one can adapt their own approach towards. But I would ask, I mean, saying, okay, I've heard the flower discussion before. I loved it. If it didn't work as a hospital, would it still be valuable? So what I think a checklist or a thought is, if that doesn't work with the planning, then it fails for an HDR design project. You could do it on your own and have a failed hospital. That's fine, and I applaud the idea. But the idea is critical to you. But you've got to make sure it works, or has a thought of work. So I'm getting at the personality needs to be infused in how we describe this. It can't be a vessel by itself. Each and every one of you needs to put your personal values on what you believe. Good, I agree, and that's a learning for me today. Maybe that's inherent in how I would do this, but it's not inherent and clear to everybody here that they should do this.
Yeah,
you know.
can I rebound off that? Because I think I also want to say thank you, because I was, you know, why are we gathering? Why are we part of a crew or a team? And how does that work when you are 14,000? You know, and how recently, I mean, in the office, we always say, and we do to clients and recruiting, we're so big that actually the cool thing is we become super small and super local, super kind of distinct, because how do you control across such a big space? I've never worked for a company this big, right? So how do you kind of control an ethos? And this, you said it quite rightly, is like, this could be a great armature, but it has to be inflected for the kind of local, right? So this dichotomy of like the big and the small is actually a powerful thing, way more powerful than a lot of offices.
Well, the ethos to the philosophy to the person.
Yeah.
Okay, but my only problem with the 14,000 and the personal is if the personal's at odds.
Exactly. That's what
okay, with what we do, okay, that could be catastrophic.
And I
so that's all I'm going to get at. And we have to. If I personally believed, I hate sustainability. I don't agree with them. You know, I want to spend energy like crazy. That's my belief. I don't. I really. That's not. I shouldn't be doing these kind of buildings for this kind of company. I should be off my own practice doing that. So that's all I'd say. We got to be careful that we are a collective.
I was going to say it benefits me too, because I always struggle with this. Is like how. So when you do, how does it not get cacophonous if you're every single time doing something completely different and you don't know how it maps back to who we are, why HDR?
Well, that's why I think we have structure.
The balance
to
is
do
like
that. I mean, what if we? There are many projects that don't have an idea. I see them every day that we do. That is not acceptable. So for me, see, it's the opposite. Not that, I mean, those are 5 great stories, and I know you much better because of what you just described, how you work, right? But what if you design something, you don't have an idea? Is that okay? Is that okay?
No. No, it's not.
No.
So how do we deal with that? Like, my point is that there's like a, you know, I'm not worried about this side of things, okay, when the idea of personal connection comes out, because every project's better for an individual to add their oomph out of their soul, right? Every project's better. But if your soul says, get it done, I don't give a shit about ideas, get to the next one. We do a lot of that work. We do it, and we shouldn't be doing it. So,
Does that fall into the discussions you've had around design on teams is a responsibility of certain parts of the team, but the design overall is everyone's responsibility? We're going to start to talk about that. It's not optional to have design thinking.
well, that's what the approach or attempt is with those 5 pieces. It may be 4, it may be 2, it may be 12. Yes, you need to. There's a passing point. You know, you need to believe that the ideas are. You need to believe ideas are important, and you have to make sure that's the case. Or you can't design a hospital and that doesn't work. You can't. You know, that's not acceptable.
It's not binary, right? One or the other. It should be both.
Symbiotic.
It is symbiotic, but if you with 14,000 people or even 2,000, how does one control it? That's kind of. I'm asking a different question than what you have great presentations, and I love each one of you for your own passion. But how do you control the other 1,200 who don't have that passion?
I think it goes back to something Don mentioned. I say it a little differently, but I think it's similar. It's our job when we on the brief is to give you something you never imagined you even needed. Frankly, that's the magic. That's the non-commodified effort, right? That's the premium, right? And I think that's where we want to be, for sure. What I find is the rigor that we do this with clients, with which we do this with clients, is also, frankly, the rigor we need to do it with internally, right? To the project manager, to all the stereotypes, So if we can really do it out there, then it behooves us to do it just as fine inside. I make it sound so easy, I know, but I do think that it's very doable. And to me, that's the 14,000 break. That's how you shift the scale. And it is at a design and leadership level. I think we all have to do that, right? Because I'd rather, it's a personal thing for me. I want to attract, and I don't want to go chase people. I just prefer for them to just arrive on the doorstep. just takes time. But I have found that that really does work. And I don't know about you guys, but when somebody asked me about how many people are working on TOAs, you get 120 people working on a whole point. That's probably nothing like some of the China work. But for me, that was a lot of people. And you can imagine, I come from a town with like a few people, it's a small studio. So I really think that if we can pull that off culturally and throw it, whether it's boot camp or all these different things where people learn the value of their personality, just like the 5 of you, the infusion of that relative to the framework, that's the magic for me.
I think we're talking about a culture that it's within all of us, and not just us in this room, but whether it's 1,000 people in the firm that you might work in that, or 14,000 people in the firm. It's a culture of design that we all have a place in that.
Yeah, the culture, I mean, our culture is different in each office because it's not consistent. The level of quality of design, I believe, is different in each office or each studio because the culture is different in the office that's set up, right? So it's incumbent on not just to let it go, and you know, it's important to have layers of analysis of how well that's doing. And you know, in a big company, it's very, very difficult to run this up the ladder and down the ladder for a consistency. That's what I'm trying to achieve is that, you know. So when the 3 pillars were presented and I had no idea what was being presented, I was like, holy shit, what do I do now? Shouldn't be, no, but that happens to all of us every day. In every meeting we go with various people, we know we face those things every day. If we had a clearer way to work through, okay, it would be a framework to allow us to be individualizing that culture. But it's got to be clear because we have clear operational directives. We need to have clear understanding of what we're trying to build. You know? So I like simplicity, clarity, provocative exploration, resist, but they're pieces of a design methodology, not a philosophy. You know, that's why when I talk about, you know, an ethos and a philosophy and a methodology, they're different, and we have to talk about them differently.
I mean, you haven't talked about this yet, but I was going to pick on this actually.
No, don't pick on it. So,
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Jim, Tom, myself, Scott, and others, we got together a couple years ago. We felt like